Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to be called and to follow my honourable friend and to make a contribution reflecting my time as an advisor in the Ministry of Defence as well as the Cabinet Office, where I was involved in national security issues and the investment regime. And during 3 years advising the Defence Secretary, there are issues with an increasing number of transactions that typically involve small firms involved in sensitive parts of the defence supply chain or in emergency technologies. But the regime at that time, due to the threshold limit, did not allow the government to impose formal remedies, let alone to block transactions. Instead, we had to rely on a quiet word with those seeking to sell firms to discourage them from such action. And in more than one case, the suspicion was that a hostile actor, a state actor, was seeking to use a transaction to acquire key intellectual property to support their offensive military capabilities. Now, persuasion did ensure that none of those transactions came to fruition, but the risk was clearly there, and it's not acceptable to leave that gap in our powers. And in the Cabinet Office, I worked on measures to improve the government's ability to take a more strategic review of risks, to understand the cumulative impact that my rival friend, the member for South Holland Deepings and others have talked about, as well as bringing in the regulations to lower the threshold for military dual-use goods and advanced technologies. That dealt with some of the problems, but the case for comprehensive reform to strengthen the current legal framework is compelling. And in legislating, our role here today is to judge how best to protect national security whilst encouraging investment and maintaining the UK's hard-fought reputation as one of the best places to do business. And in my view, that's best done by having a regime that's targeted, predictable, transparent and efficient. So I welcome this bill, which improves on the proposals set out in the White Paper. It gives more clarity on the sectors where the greatest risks to national security exist and for which a mandatory approach will therefore rightly apply, subject to consultation. But investors must be assured that this regime is about national security. It's not a power to block transactions that ministers just don't like or as a backdoor to protectionism. There also needs to be an efficient screening system. And it's crucial that the structures and resources are put in place to ensure the timetables for review and assessment in the bill are actually met. And I know that the proposed investment and security unit will sit within the Department for Business, and others have referred to this issue. I'd be grateful if my honourable friend in his closing speech can explain how that unit will work, for example, with the National Security Secretariat within the Cabinet Office, and if indeed there will be joint staffing, given the need for people with sufficiently experience and vetting in order to provide the advice, because the success of this regime depends on being able to deal with the number of cases coming forward and number of notifications. So will there also be additional resourcing for the agencies and other parts of government who are going to be providing these assessments? So in conclusion, I think this bill represents a proportionate approach to provide the powers to screen transactions on national security grounds and ensures that the UK remains open for business, but not at any cost.